Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. I'm getting an update from Vizsla Silver, and we're going to be recapping the PEA that was just released yesterday, July 24th, on the Panuco project in Mexico. Headline numbers here, very strong. After-tax NPV, 5% of over $1.1 billion US, after-tax IRR of over 85%, initial Capex of right around $224 million US. I am chatting right now with Mike Konnert, President and CEO of Vizsla Silver, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol VZLA, and on the NYSE also under that same symbol VZLA. Mike, this PEA is really putting into context just how potentially profitable this Panuco project is, coming from two underground mines. Mike, take us through these PEA numbers, please, and just how they seem to separate this project even further from a lot of other silver assets.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, kind of every other silver asset. And we can compare a lot of different things on the economics here. The headline number is 1.1 billion NPV at a 5% discount rate, 86% IRR, which is, incredible. But really, I think the best way to quantify this, and what's really important, taking into account the very low Capex too of about 224 million, is that we have an NPV to Capex ratio that is head and shoulders above anybody else. And we've just put an updated presentation on our website. And you can see, Silvercrest is an incredible project. It had about a 450, I think, or $460 million NPV when it came out with its first PEA. And of course, it traded to $1 billion market cap on the back of that. And then it had a 4-to-1 NPV to Capex ratio, which at the time was just incredible. And it is incredible. It's really quite an incredible number. You see companies like Cordero, Discovery have a 1.5 times NPV to Capex ratio. It's a big project, but a big Capex. But Vizsla is the only company that I've ever seen that has a 5-to-1 NPV to Capex ratio. So you can go on our presentation and see this chart, and you'll see really how much it stands out, that we have this combination of very high NPV with really accessible capital expenditure to get us into production. And then if you look at our comparables into what Vizsla Silver and our Panuco project can be, it's well in the top 7 silver developers, potential silver producers. There's a number of mines owned by Fresnillo that have about between 18 and 22 million ounces of annual production. In the first 2 years, Vizsla will be over 20 million ounces of production, according to our PEA. And then life of mine, about 15 million ounces. So this is a very big potential mining scenario here, what the PEA demonstrates. And it compares very, very favorably, not only to our peers, but across the silver industry and even the precious metals as a whole industry here. The very rare combination of high grade, near surface mineralization, low Capex creates very significant NPV. And of course, that ratio demonstrates how special this really is.
Can you extrapolate some of these numbers out to general cash flow from operations, either per year or over the life of the mine, when you consider that you're saying that initial Capex of 224 million US, the payback period is just 9 months?
Well, that's right. The first 2 years of cash flow was well into the 200 million range there. It's really quite impressive. And this will be one of the most significant annual cash flow single asset silver producers out there.
Now, Mike, this PEA is considering 2 contiguous underground mines, the Copala mine and the Napoleon mine. Just explain to us how that came together, mining both of these areas in 2 different underground mines.
Well, what's interesting about this is that what we're looking at and what we're describing today is a PEA that's based on what you could refer to as a stale resource. That resource came out in January. We've been drilling since then. The cutoff for that resource would have been in fall of last year. So, the information we have in hand, although it's very good, and the result of 300,000 meters of diamond drilling, is really just a snapshot of a point in time. So what we're showing is that this mine here, Copala, will be the first area of development, and then it would sequence into Napoleon after that, and then likely into La Luisa, basically going from east to west. However, we've done a lot of drilling and have grown the resource, expanded the high-grade areas, and done a lot of higher confidence drilling that may feed into Copala being an even bigger part of any future mining scenario. That's the tricky part about PEA, is that you're taking a snapshot, a standstill moment in the life of the company, wrapping economics around it. But when you have a district like Vizsla's, it continues to get better. So it's always in the rearview mirror, whereas we're looking forward into production right now.
So some of the next steps, feasibility study, you've outlined that a number of times, second half of 2025, and even sooner than that, test mining, the fully permitted and funded bulk sample test mine. Take us through the stages here, and even more importantly, this test mining.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a view of first silver in 2027. And in order to get to that, what we need to do is release a feasibility study in the second half of next year. And so work has already begun on that, basically. And as we've released this PEA, we've already started working towards the feasibility study. A lot of information will go into that, including this upgraded drilling that we're doing, and have done, and further mine planning, detailed engineering, these types of things. But at the same time, we want to de-risk the startup of this project as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to decouple the mining risk, so to speak. There's two distinct parts of this operation. One would be the mine. So the tunnels underground is, that bear all the ore. And then the milling processing facilities, which is processing that material as it comes out of the ground. Oftentimes what companies will do is they'll start up both of those at the same time, and you're compounding risks at that point. Something could happen at the mill, and then something could happen at the mine, and then you can really start to miss your early cash flow. So in order to de-risk that, what we wanted to do and what we are doing and what we're permitted to do is to start an underground test mine at Copala and start to bring out some of the high-grade material above surface, develop the mine, understand it, understand the way that the mineralization works at Copala, and really get ahead of that before we start the construction of the mill and start producing in earnest. So it's a method. This test mine is not only will it help us de-risk the project further. One of the things that happens often at San Dimas up the road there, about 80 kilometers away, and many of these Mexican mines with these silver veins, is once you get underground, you make new discoveries. So we're excited about that potential as well. Really, it's just going to be a major step in de-risking and potentially growing this wonderful mine here at Copala.
So further project enhancement opportunities outlined in that news release outlines 5 different points of stuff that you can still work on to advance past this PEA. One deals with drilling and some of the infill drilling that's ongoing. Talk to us about the drilling that's happening and what other kind of internal tweaks you can make and will be looking at to further improve this PEA.
Well, the drilling is going quite well. We've done a fair amount of work in the infill drilling program that we have in the west within the potential mine area described in the PEA. But also we're excited to go outside of that and potentially make new discoveries across the district. That to me is really exciting, because despite Vizsla now having a PEA and being a developer and being very serious about driving this project forward into production and becoming the next great silver producer with this asset, exploration is still in our DNA, and we want to make new discoveries. Dr. Jesus Bellador, our Vice President of Exploration, is an incredibly talented explorationist, and he wants to go and make new discoveries. So that's important to us. But in terms of enhancing the project, in reference to the area of the PEA, there's that more infill drilling, expanding the resource area, upgrading the resource area, investigating the scheduling and the mine planning for further optimization. Again, as the resource grows, there may be better ways to schedule the mine and increase the high grade that goes through the mill early on, enhancing the economics. There's other types of metallurgical optimization that we're looking at deposit-wide. It's very simple metallurgy and consistent metallurgy, but there's always ways to potentially to improve that. And so we've done, I believe, 5 rounds of metallurgical work so far, and there's always an opportunity to continue to improve. We could also look at the recovery, flotation recovery, and potential concentrate quality. So there's things that we can look at on the process side. And then optimizing tailings and water management as well. So there's a lot that we can do based on this PEA. And I mentioned this before, it isn't just a simple scoping study. This is a really kind of an advanced level study here that's helping us and informing us as we move forward into production and following the stages in between here and production. But there's always ways to improve, again, going back to that snapshot idea.
So what about further permitting then? You are permitted for that test mining bulk sample, but what about continuing to work through permitting for the bigger, grander operation?
Well, we benefit here at this project because a lot of the ground that we're using, the areas that we're using for the test mine, they're in disturbed areas. This is a mining district that's seen 450 years of production history. There's other small industry, there's other small farming in the area. So this isn't a pristine jungle or pristine forest. Some places are certainly, but the areas that we're investigating have a long history of mining in the general vicinity. So we're able to utilize that history, the disturbed areas, to expedite permitting in some ways wherever possible. We've been permitted for our test mine, which is excellent. But we still need to submit the MEA, the overall environmental impact permit application, and that'll give us the ability to move forward into a permanent mining scenario. And there's other permits as well, of course. In addition to that, there's explosives, there's water licenses, things like that. But of course, the main one is the MEA, and we're expecting to submit that sometime in the near future here. Of course, that all needs to line up with our future goals of production in 2027. But where I'm optimistic is that we've already seen some really positive movements out of the new government, where the Secretary of Economy and people in this office have started to express positive things towards the mining industry, and we're excited about that. So there's been more positive remarks, let's say, out of the government, this new government, in the last few weeks and months here than there really ever has been out of the AMLO administration. So I'm quite optimistic that this administration is going to be very good for mining. They see the value that mining can create, including jobs. But also there's something very simple about Panuco that helps with permitting. And you may recall that Silvercrest and Mag Silver were both permitted during this last administration, which I just said was a kind of a difficult one for mining. And the simple reason for that is because they're underground mines that don't have significant surface disturbances and really just create value and don't have a lot of issues in terms of environmental aspects. And this is really similar to that. It's 100% underground. It's in an area that's been mined for 450 years. So we are, as a group, very optimistic that the permitting will continue to be expedited here for Vizsla, and that we'll be able to have a successfully permitted operation in the coming months and years here.
So, Mike, let's take a little step back too and talk about exploration drilling. The news release says you've explored on this project 30% of all the known targets. We've talked about just how large this project is and how you're really focused just on the center of mass in one area of the asset. What sort of exploration drilling is the company going to be able to do while you do move forward with that test mining and the feasibility study work?
Well, I would even take a bit of a step back from that and say that drilling is a part of our exploration toolkit. But and you'll know that we've talked about this for years, the airborne electromagnetics, something that we expect to actually have this year underway. Electromagnetics and other airborne surveys that'll help with exploration. We've only mapped 67% of the original district, the Panuco district. Of course, we've expanded that about 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months with property acquisitions. So the property keeps on getting bigger. We keep exploring it, but we're still barely scratching the surface. We do plan on taking those 2 rigs off of the infill program and going out further afield looking for new centers of mass. And I think that's actually something that really distinguishes Vizsla from other, let's call it past peers, companies that were very successful like Silvercrest and Mag Silver, is that we have this massive district that we control 100%. We've multiplied the size of that district over the last months here. And the ability for us, or the possibility, I should say, for us to go out and make new discoveries is very high. And as we do that, I think it won't be hard for investors to potentially see, this is project one, the PEA area is project one. New discoveries of high-grade centers of mass could be project 2 and 3, etc. And as I mentioned, this has the potential to be a top 5, 20 million plus ounce producer just on project 1. I wonder what that would look like if we had multiple centers of mass with other high-grade material. So this could be a very important project, I think, going forward.
So, Mike, I'll get you out of here on this question. Now that you have this PEA out, you still have a lot of work to do here, and you're still moving forward with all these different initiatives. Does this PEA further make Vizsla Silver a takeover target in your eyes?
It's a good question. I suspect that a PEA like this is an important milestone for anybody looking at the project for potential acquisition. These types of single asset projects are often really on high demand by producing companies, and anybody who's in the silver space as a producing company will recognize how rare this project is, but I think it's still criminally undervalued. I think even more so now that we've put this PEA out, I think it's hard to ignore really that we're trading at a discount both on EV per ounce and PNAV basis when you look at producers and developers. So we have a lot of catching up to do to what I think the value of this company should be at this level. And we certainly wouldn't be entertaining any offers at these levels here. And we know that there's a lot of value left on the table, which, by the way, we're funded for with our $40 million in the bank, multiple near-term catalysts coming in the next 12 months to continue to grow value. But we are very serious about our vision, which is to become one of the world's largest single-asset silver producers with our project here.
Okay. Mike, thank you very much for this update. I'll post a link in the show notes to the company's website, as well as that news release outlining the PEA numbers. Please, everyone, read over that news release. Send me any questions you have for Mike. I'll get him to address those personally and then also in future interviews. Mike, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate this update.